Hey everybody, welcome to a very special episode of Crossover Event, a new show from Geek Fruit where we get guests and we indulge them and let them talk about whatever they are best at. And who better than to talk about the wonderful world of the World Wrestling Federation? Well, now it's called entertainment, I suppose. That's how long it's been for me.
You just dated yourself like a noob.
That's why we have an expert here. The one and the only Mihir Joshi. What's up, man?
Good to be with you finally after we've been talking about doing something together for years now.
Absolutely, yeah. And one of the things that we always say is that, man, okay, cool, let's get Mihir, because one of the things that we really love about you is that you are the OG nerd. You have the collection. You can see it right behind you. You know your stuff.
Mihir, we need to do a bit of table setting. The three of us had a very short, heated argument about who should be on this episode with you, because we had to talk about who actually has enough street cred to hold a conversation with you on this subject. And somehow it's me, because I watched wrestling for all of maybe 4 years, which I think is about 3 years more than these other two guys did.
Okay.
So I think I tapped out about 15 odd years ago, give or take, right at the end of The Rock and Stone Cold's reign.
Yeah.
Well,
let's do it, man. Let's do it. So, one of the things that I've loved about wrestling, and I've been a fan now for over 25 years, because I realized that I started watching wrestling when they started showing it on Indian television, which was, I think it was, I don't know, there was this one Star channel back then. I don't even remember what it was called. Star
TV, right?
Something. I don't know.
Star TV?
Star ka koi channel tha. I don't remember what it was, but they started showing wrestling on that. So that's when I started. And the reason I'm wearing a Bret Hart t-shirt is because that's where I began. I began when Bret Hart was still champion and it was still actively wrestling. And after Bret Hart got done with his career and went to WCW after the Montreal screw job, that's when the whole Attitude Era began, because WCW the company started really growing. And then there were what was known as the Monday Night Wars, which was WWE versus WCW. And that's the time when it got really interesting. That's pretty much the time when you were watching as well, when The Rock and Stone Cold, these characters really became big. And WWE eventually won the Monday Night Wars, as it was called, and then they became the ultimately massive company. And they just, like you said, that's around the same time when WWF became WWE. They took out the F. The caption back then was, or the slogan back then was, "Get the F out."
Oh, dope. That's so good.
Yeah.
I remember it's just because of the Worldwide Fund, right? That they just wanted to avoid a copyright strike as well.
Yeah, there was a copyright issue. And then they realized that, with WWE coming in, it also very aptly describes what the product is, because it's not, while it is a sport in a way, it's not purely a sport. It is entertainment. And, the most common thing that you guys probably hear, or that non-fans hear, is that, it's all fake.
Yeah,
right?
I know. I was just going to bring that up. Yeah.
I know. That's the most common thing that I get to hear. I'm 39 years old and people are like, "What? You're still a WWE fan? Isn't that all fake?" And then I just keep reminding everybody that the name suggests that it is entertainment. Okay. Now, as Marvel and DC fans, all three of us, we go and watch the movies. Right? We watch all the movies. We probably watch the TV shows. We watch the animated series. Now, for us, we know that is fake, but we still want to watch it because we don't know how that story is going to end. Right? When you went to watch Infinity War, you did not know what's going to happen at the end of Infinity War, at the end of any Marvel movie for that matter. Look at wrestling pretty much like that. It's like superheroes fighting for your entertainment. I call WWE the biggest soap opera in the world with action. So imagine Tuki Saas Bhi Kabhi Bahu Thi, or whatever your favorite soap opera is, imagine it with gladiators kicking each other's asses. If you have a beef with someone, you don't just do behind the scenes gossip, you actually go and kick their face in, or you really get into each other's faces and get or issues sorted out in the ring. So that's pretty much what it is. And there is a team of writers which is headed by Vince McMahon, who's still the big boss and who's still running the operation. So he and his team of writers decides the direction in which things are going. See, the reason I'm even talking about this openly, and the reason I say this openly, is because I'm now a part of the machinery, because I'm also the commentator for WWE.
That's true.
On Sony 10.3. Now, in the good old days, back when social media did not exist, there was what was called the kayfabe world, which means nobody addressed what the storylines are outside of the ring. So The Undertaker spent years cultivating that persona of him being this really deep, dark, hardcore guy, even outside of the ring. So if he met people on the road, he would still retain that persona of his. But now, because of social media, if you see their social media handles, it's their real name followed by their the stage name. They've come to a point right now where they recognize that even the fan base understands that there is a character and there is a real person. And now these real people as well have become massive celebrities. I mean, of course, their characters is what puts them over and gets them the fame. So if it's Roman Reigns, for instance, who's one of the most popular guys right now, or if it's John Cena, they became popular because of who they are inside the WWE ring. But now their non-WWE persona is also big enough. Where now John Cena is acting in movies. The Rock left WWE and he's the biggest movie star in the world right now.
He's one of the biggest, yeah, of course.
I want to ask specifically about another person that's come in. Like, so lately, I know that Ronda Rousey came in, right?
Yeah.
Have there been other MMA people that have come in the past, or do they already have a history? Because the interesting thing I found about that was the fact that she jumped over just as she was at her peak, right, in MMA.
So, it's not just MMA. They've actually taken athletes from all American sports because they see that any American sport which requires physicality is the right pool for them to pick up people from. So there are, I look at it as two pools of talent which exists within WWE. One which is homegrown or which is purely wrestling grown. So somebody who always wanted to be a wrestler, who trained to be a wrestler, who did his rounds, maybe played in the independent circuit, played small roles in smaller companies, and then they did something good enough where WWE said that, okay, let's get him on. Or WWE built them from scratch because now they have something called a performance center where they're just picking up good athletes from various sports and then they're crafting them completely by themselves. So that's one pool of talent which exists, which is the original wrestler guys, people who only wanted to do professional wrestling as a career. And then the second pool is people that they picked up from various sports. So for instance, Brock Lesnar was actually an amateur wrestling champion. He was in NFL, and then they picked him and brought him on to WWE. Kurt Angle was a gold medalist amateur wrestler, and then they brought him into WWE. I mean, see, all of these guys, that's the part where the entertainment and the sport actually mix. Because these guys are legitimately jacked. They're legitimately strong. They're working out. Yeah. They're putting the work in the gym, where they're ready to come out looking like these, Greek gods, in terms of their physique and everything. And the reality is, say, for instance, if there's a ladder match, if you're climbing a 20-foot ladder and you fall down, even if you're falling on canvas, it is still going to hurt. So my point is, like any sport, whether it's football, cricket, hockey, whatever the hell else you're talking about, these guys are trained to the top level.
This is so interesting. You have put it like perfectly almost. I wanted to ask you, what's the maybe you can tell us a little more about the pop culture side of wrestling. Why do you think there's such a huge fandom around these characters and these storylines? What's your take on that?
The first thing is the characters are larger than life. How often do you get to see a man who's, say, 7 feet tall wrestling another man who looks like he's built out of rock? I'm talking about the infamous moment where Hulk Hogan picked up Andre the Giant. That was a defining moment for sports entertainment. Yeah. By the way, for anybody who's a wrestling fan, I've very craftily put certain things in my background, which you will see. One is, of course, the WWE title, but the other thing that I recommend anybody to see is this DVD called 50 Years of Wrestling, which is unbelievable. Like, if you want to get a crash course in the history of wrestling and understand what the company, because you know what, for me, the reason I love this, apart from the theatrical, the theatricality of the thing, is the history and the incredible business that this man Vince McMahon has created. There are so many sports, but not every sport becomes pop culture. See, this is the closest that any geek can get to seeing superheroes in their real life.
That is true. That's so true. It is a lot like making comic book characters, right?
Exactly. This man is brilliant because he not only thought about creating the characters, he thought about everything that goes with it. So everything from ice cream bars to cereal to replica title belts to action figures to comics to DVDs, movies, Blu-rays, everything under the sun that you can term under the word pop culture has been made by WWE for their WWE superstars. For instance, Bret Hart, he used to wear these sunglasses, when he used to come to the ring, and he used to take it off and give it to a kid, and I think it was one of the most prized items for any fan that you wanted to have. Bret Hart sunglasses. For me as a pop culture fan, for me as a WWE fan, one of the greatest moments of my life was when my wife gifted me a pair of Bret Hart sunglasses signed by Bret Hart, which he ordered from his website on Canada, and he sent it to me. It's right here above me. There you go.
Oh shit. Dude, I remember these so well. I remember this.
And this one says, "Hey Mihir, you are the best there is, the best there was, the best there ever will be."
The best there ever will be. Oh shit. Well done. That is amazing.
So my wife got Bret Hart to write, "Hey Mihir, you're the best there is, the best there was." I was like, yeah man, Bret Hart just used his catchphrase for me. So there you go.
That's
See, as a fan, you guys know I'm a big DC Comics fan. This for me is as cool as getting a sketch of, say, Superman drawn by Ivan Reyes, or Jim Lee doing a Batman sketch for me, and I would keep it with the same amount of love and affection in my living room. I'd frame it and put it up the way I do with these glasses. So that's what WWE in terms of pop culture has done.
Probably my favorite thing about, the most compelling thing about these guys, one of the best things about this is that it's live entertainment. Yeah. I equate them very much to a theater actor versus a film actor. A theater actor really knows how to play to a crowd. These guys know how to play to a crowd. And they understand the responsibility of being on the ball without fail. The second that the lights and the camera turn on, you can't stop. Plus, you have to punch this 7-foot tall guy and take a punch from the 7-foot tall guy while keeping your A game on.
No,
and
absolutely.
So what I want to get to is, who do you think might be the next, maybe not the caliber of The Rock, but who's going to be the next breakout star that we should look out for, that you think is playing the game really well? Like, we have John Cena right now, who's really hot ticket item. Who's the next guy that we should?
So John Cena is almost done. John Cena is almost retired right now, by the way, because he's pretty much a non-active wrestler. So he's not officially retired. He's not called his retirement speech yet, but he's almost out of the company and he's completely into Hollywood now. He's in the same road as The Rock was on. So The Rock is maybe 10 miles ahead of him, but John Cena is on that road where he's getting into films and television in a much, much bigger way. After that, characters like Roman Reigns have come out, and Roman Reigns and Seth Rollins, who are the main men in the industry, while a woman called Becky Lynch and Charlotte Flair are the two leading women in the women's side of the industry. And women are almost on par in terms of billing in wrestling right now. Otherwise, earlier women used to be the side act, or people used to always joke that when a women's match came on, that's when you could go and grab food or, take a loo break in the middle of a major pay-per-view. But right now, the women's match are almost as anticipated as the men's matches. And I think, in a way, Ronda Rousey is also kind of responsible for making that happen, because she did that in the MMA world. And then the year that she came to WWE, Charlotte Flair and Becky Lynch headlined WrestleMania, which was unprecedented. WrestleMania 35 was actually headlined by 3 women, which is unbelievable. I think right now there's a incredible crop of talent which is there. The only thing that's lacking right now for them is the right direction. But there are certain stars who are phenomenal. Like, as athletes, they are great. That's the difference between The Rock, Stone Cold, those guys, and the current guy. That those guys had almost no filter. Of course, their things were also scripted, but they had a little more freedom to be themselves. So when you see The Rock being himself in the ring, that's The Rock's attitude being dialed up to 10. Or when you saw Stone Cold going out there and, crashing beer cans and, being this badass, throwing a middle finger up and whatever else, that was Stone Cold Steve Austin being dialed to a max. Right now, I think there is over-scripting happening or over-planning happening. And the moment that stops, there are going to be certain characters that are going to really flourish.
All right, Mihir, you've done an amazing job of making me really excited to get back and watch some of these matches. But you've really kind of captured the feeling of it. We're gonna close this section out. Before that, if anybody wants to check out, what do you call it, WWE stuff right now, what do you say is the first thing they should watch before we get into our next segment?
So I would recommend, jump in at any point of time. You can watch Raw and SmackDown, and within 2 weeks, you'll know what the characters are and a little bit of their backstory. But purely for wrestling content and great matches, NXT is unparalleled. They've got some unbelievable superstars, and they're all ready to be on the main roster. Very frankly, NXT is not like, your little leagues. It's like, think about it like NXT is like IPL, and Raw and SmackDown is like the main in Indian national team. But
Sure.
IPL is watched almost as much as, your Indian national team.
Right.
Absolutely.
Or something like that.
Yeah. Awesome, man. Mihir, so thank you so much for that quick rundown on WWE.
Before you begin, I just want to say one thing. This is not very often that I get to talk about my love for WWE. One of the greatest joys of my life has been that I transitioned from being a fan to being a part of the machinery, as I called it a little while ago. And I just completed 2 years as a WWE commentator in Hindi on the 25th of April. And just to put it into perspective, if I just look at it from the number of people who watch wrestling in Hindi in India compared to the number of people who watch wrestling in America in English, I actually have a bigger audience than the WWE commentators in English have in America alone. So, as many number of people are watching wrestling in Hindi as they are in English. And for the last almost 6 years, every time a WWE superstar came to India, I would travel with them and host their live events. So for almost 6 years now, I've kind of realized the dream of actually working with these guys whom I've seen since I was a kid. So for me, that's one of the coolest things that I've had to do, apart from the myriad other things that I do, and you guys know what I do. So apart from music and my talk show and everything else, the MJ show has been something that's kept me occupied for almost 7 years. But apart from all of that, being with WWE or working with WWE has been a massive thrill. So yeah, I just want to let you guys know.
That's insane, man.
That's amazing.
It's so cool. Good because even our first episode of this show was with Sahil Shah, who's such a big Tinkle fan, and then he was telling us about how he kind of also started writing for Tinkle, and everyone kind of just finally connecting that that childhood dream with their with what they want to do. So amazing, man, and congratulations on that. Where can people watch your the WWE shows with your commentary?
So, Sony 10 is where all the Hindi commentary happens. Sony 10-1, the show happens in English, and parallelly at the same time, it happens in Hindi. So, by the way, we do not get a script. I go to the Sony office at 5:30 in the morning, because at 6:30, the show comes on live from America because it's at Monday night. So I actually go to the studio live at 5:30 or 6:30 in the morning, depending on whether there is daylight savings time. And we call the action live. So there's no script, there's nothing given to us. So in a way, the commentators actually need to be experts on wrestling, where they need to know all the moves, they need to know the history of the superstars, they need to know a little bit about what's happening with them on social media, just to be able to make it relevant to the fans. So for us, if you grew up with the voices of, say, Jim Ross and Jerry Lawler or whoever else, those voices are what you instinctively associate with. When the Undertaker threw Mick Foley from the top of the cage, Jim Ross going, "Oh my God, he's killed him! He's killed him! He's killed him!" Yeah, so those voices are what you associate with your memories of wrestling.
That is so true. Yeah. I believe that to be true for every sport. Yeah.
And for me to think that my voice is what a generation of young kids are going to be watching and thinking, at least the guys who are watching it in Hindi, I'm going to say that, oh, this is the voice that we grew up watching wrestling to.
Absolutely.
Do you have a catchphrase? Please tell me you have a catchphrase. If you don't have a cowboy hat or a crown, you better have a catchphrase.
No, so, unfortunately, the commentators don't have the catchphrase. The catchphrase is by the... but one of the words which apparently I've been told I use a lot is Zabardast.
Zabardast!
Yes.
I love it.
I love it. I'll take it. I love it.
I'll take it. Oh, that's awesome.
So for instance, right now, if this little session that we were doing, if you guys were talking and if I was your guest and I was doing commentary for this on the side, it would be something like, Jishnu और तेजस बात कर रहे हैं मिहिर जोशी के साथ, मिहिर जोशी आ चुके हैं और वो है सबसे बड़े WWE फैन, क्या जबरदस्त बातें हो रही है। अगर आपको ये शो देखना है तो जरूर जाइए गीक फ्रूट के चैनल पे और सब्सक्राइब करिए क्योंकि ये है, what is the show called?
Crossover event.
Crossover event.
Boom! You just made our promo for the rest of our lives, basically.
Our job is done. Yeah, our job is done here.
Incredible.
Wow.
Zabardast, one would even say. Mir, I don't know what to say. Thank you. That was amazing.
I don't know where to go from there.
I don't know where to go from there, but we do have one more segment. Which
let's do that.
Exactly where to go from there. We know where to go. Yeah.
And we want to just throw some pop culture titles at you, and you give us your hot takes on them, and tell us what's going on in the mind of MJ on these things. All right. So we're gonna start with an easy one. We've been asking all our guests. Star Wars, the sequel trilogy.
So you know what? I'm very easy to please, and I kind of enjoyed it. For everybody who says that it was all this and all that, fuck you, man. It's an amazing show. It's an amazing movie. Can you think about making something like that? I was blown away. I have, by the way, let me just there on top. I have every Star Wars movie in Steelbook. The only movie that I don't have right now is the newest one, which has come out, and that's because India has not yet released it in Steelbook, but I will get it from the US or UK. I'm going to have every movie of Star Wars in Steelbook. I have all the Star Wars statues that Kotobukiya has ever released. So I'm a huge Star Wars fan. And for everybody who didn't like the last 3 movies, fuck you.
Yes. I love it. I think Jishnu and I at least are of the same opinion for sure. That's awesome. All right. Next.
Easy one.
Tintin versus Asterix.
For me, Asterix. I grew up on Asterix. So my journey into comic books began because of Asterix. My dad used to show me Asterix comics before I could read. And it came to a point where he tells me, I don't remember shit. I don't remember what I did last week. But he tells me that I used to be able to tell him the story of the comic books without actually reading the comic books. And then what made it more beautiful for me is as I grew up, the humor became more evident. The puns that are there, you don't realize when you are a child. But as you grow older, even the names of all the characters are just so incredible. And you discover the layers of humor that are there in Asterix comics. And that's why I loved it more. And I think just my nostalgia with it and my memories with it make Asterix bigger for me than Tintin.
Snyder cut. Go.
Okay, so here's my scene. I love DC Comics. I'm the biggest DC Comics fan ever. You know what? Because I'm talking about comics, I'm going to flip it around and I'm going to show you that there is my comic book shelf. Okay? Had to bring it in. So that's my comic book shelf out there. It's a huge shelf and I'd say 90% of the comics there are DC Comics. So I'm a huge DC Comics fan. But I think in terms of the movies, while they're great at what they're at, the Marvel movies have definitely been a lot more entertaining. Now, ever since Justice League came out and people said that it was trash, and I'm almost inclined. I'm inclined to agree with it, because it wasn't the greatest movie, especially for a comic book fan who's seen what Apocalypse is and who's seen
exactly.
Yeah, so from that perspective, it was pretty bad. I think they could do a much better job. So I'm keeping my fingers crossed here, all of them, and hoping that the Snyder cut is good.
The Hobbit trilogy. Everybody loves the original. Oh my god.
Lord of the Rings and the Hobbit trilogy is right here in Blu-ray, extended versions. I love it, okay? Again, I'm easy to please, okay, like I told you.
Okay.
Was it too long? The original Hobbit was the first book. So I'm one of the few people who's read Hobbit and Lord of the Rings before the movies came out. Okay? So when I heard that the Hobbit, which is a book which is yay thin, and Lord of the Rings is this much, this made into 3 movies, I get it. This made into 3 movies, I don't. But am I complaining? No. I had a great time watching it. I watched these are movies which I had watched over and over again, which is why I have them in Blu-ray. So, I'm not complaining about the fact that they went into 3 movies. It was a little longer than it should have been. But it was good. And they added elements to it which were not in the book.
All right.
No, I think that about wraps it up, man. Thank you so much, Mihir. This was...
Mihir, what an exceptional flippin' interview, man. Man, what I love about you is that you give 100% always, and I love that. I love your enthusiasm for even like for WWE. So, just for anything you want to plug right now, go for it. Tell us where we can find you online, and for whoever's watching, just let us know.
Sure, man. I mean, I think one of the biggest joys of my life has been my talk show. I host a show called The MJ Show, which is now in its 7th season. Actually, in the lockdown, I've had my massive 7th season.
I know, you've had so many guests on the show. It's amazing.
I've had 116 guests in 58 days. So it's been pretty insane. Oof. I've had a lot of fantastic people who come on the show. You can catch The MJ Show. I've been doing it live on Instagram, but it goes up on the YouTube channel of The MJ Show. So please go and subscribe to that. That is youtube.com/The MJ Show. And I'm Mihir Joshi Music everywhere. So Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. I'm Mihir Joshi Music. Follow me on Instagram and you get to check out a lot of interesting content. Because I have some, like last night I had, I don't know what the timeline will be when this comes out, but very recently I had Jaideep Ahlawat from Patal Lok, which is another brilliant TV show.
On Amazon Prime.
I mean, a web series that has come up on Amazon Prime. So I've had everybody from actors to singers to all sorts of interesting people coming on the show. So go and check that out. And when I'm not doing all the things where I'm talking like a maniac, I also have a blues and rock and roll band called the Mihir Joshi Band. Our debut album, Mumbai Blues, is on all streaming platforms. Give it a listen and let me know what you think. So yeah, that's my plug.
Amazing. Man for all seasons. I love it.
Pro. Jesus Christ. Yeah.
Okay, great. Mihir, thank you so much for being on Crossover Event. And good luck with everything in the future. And we'll hope to see you at some nerd convention very, very soon, man.